the data link layer design issues. Being the designer, we want to design any layer. Then we need to identify certain tasks performed by the layer and how those tasks are going to be performed by the layer. So those things we have to think of. So in that aspect, what we can say, there are a number of functions a data link layer has to carry out. First, we have to identify what are the different functions a layer has to perform. Based on the function, then we have to identify the protocols, we have to design the protocols. So various functions the data link layer are going to perform are, so providing well-defined service interface. So that means whatever request is coming from the upper layer, that is the network layer, so data link layer has to serve the purpose of network layer requirement. So that means it has data link layer has to accept the information coming from the network layer and at the time of sending, and at the receiver, again the data link layer will hand over the received information to the network layer for further processing. So that means at the sender system, data link layer has to accept the information coming from the network layer, and at the receiver station, the data link layer has to hand over the information to the network layer. So that is the first function for the data link layer with respect to the network layer. Then the second function is dealing with transmission errors. While information is being transmitted from sender to the receiver, so there is every possibility of interference, noise, or some of the bits may be lost. Okay, some bits may be added. So all these things will result in the received information having errors. So there should be some mechanism to deal with these errors. So those things will be another second level of functions performed by the data link layer. So it has to identify the any errors are there or not in the received information. If at all any errors, it has to take appropriate action. Either, if possible, the error may be corrected at the receiver station, or if the error is not possible to correct, then it has to ask the sender to retransmit the same information again. That is another function of the data link layer. And the third is, so while sender is sending something and receiver is receiving something, there should be synchronization between the sender and receiver in terms of the speed, communication speed. So if the sender is sending the information too fast and receiver is unable to receive at that speed, then something will be lost at the receiver end. So that should not happen. If that should not happen means the protocol present or the data link layer and both sender and receiver should have some agreement between them. That is, the sender's data link layer and the receiver's data link layer should have some agreement that they should exchange the information with a particular speed so that nothing is lost because of the speed. So that also done by the data link layer. This is another task of the data link layer. So primarily these are the three different tasks a data link layer has to perform. So one is accepting from the network layer at the sender and delivering to the network layer at the receiver end. Second, any errors, identifying the errors on the received information. If errors are there, appropriate action to be taken. Then the third is synchronization between the sender and receiver's data link layer. So these are the three primary functions of data link layer. So every designer has to consider these things in mind. Based on that, the protocol development must be. So when we are dealing with these points, now how the data link layer does for these three functions. So that is accepting. The first thing is data link layer will accept information from the network layer at the sender side, and it is going to be delivered to the network layer at the receiver side. So what it does immediately after accepting the information from the network layer at the sender side. So the moment it is taking the information from the network layer, then the data link layer will keeps that information in a frame. It encapsulates the received information in the frame at the sender's site. Then that frame will consisting of the header part, a payload part, and the trailer part. So header part will have the details like sender's address, receiver's address, that is physical address of the sender and the physical address of the receiver. Then the size of the frame that will be available in the frame header. The details in the header are, so sender's physical address, which is a 48-bit binary number or 6-byte hexadecimal number, 12-digit hexadecimal number, 6-byte or 12-digit hexadecimal number, which is a permanent number. That number will be embossed on the network interface card by the manufacturer. So out of this 48-bit, 24 bits, upper 24 bits indicates the manufacturer's ID. Then the lower 24 bits indicate the serial number manufactured in that particular manufacturer. So that which is a permanent cannot be modifiable. So every network interface card will have a unique number, so which is permanent. So that address will be used by the data link layer from the network interface card in the header part for both sender and receiver's information. So from where it is coming to where it has to go. That is the details of the frame header. Then the payload means actual information that is coming from the network layer. So whatever is coming from the network layer will be kept in the payload field in that part by the data link layer. Then the trailer, frame trailer. So the data link layer will add a trailer to the frame. So the trailer will have the error checking mechanism. So the moment the receiver receives the information, with the help of this frame trailer, so receiver is going to verify the errors, any possible errors or not. What type of mechanism is used at the sender site to identify the errors? The same mechanism the destination has to use to identify the errors. So that mechanism is informed through this frame trailer by the sender data link layer for receiver data link layer. Then the other task, what it does is the frame management. The frame management comes into, that is a different. So if a sender data link layer has to send the information, it should have some resources. It should use some resources for forwarding this. The moment it is accepting the information from the network layer for further processing, it has to use some resources. So whatever resources are needed for a particular communication, the data link layer has to allocate those resources. Once the communication is over, again those resources should be released from the communication part. So these things, allocating the required resources and releasing the required resources or allocated resources, these are the tasks of the data link layer. So that comes under the frame management task. This is a simple diagram of the data link layer. So here what is coming is, see, packet is coming from the network layer. Then the data link layer, what it does, whatever is coming from the network layer is being kept in the payload field. Then it is going to add the header consisting of the physical address of the sender and physical address of the receiver to whom this packet or frame has to go. Then the trail and size of this particular frame, the entire size of the frame, so that the beginning and ending of the frame will be identified with this size. Then trailer. So trailer will consisting of the error checking mechanism included at the sender side. So that same error checking mechanism will be used at the receiver side. Then the frame will be handed over to the physical layer. Physical layer will transmit that as a bit stream. Then receiver physical layer will receive the bit stream and hand it over to the data link layer as a frame. Now the receiver data link layer will receive the frame. With the help of header, it is going to verify whether this frame belongs to the same station or not, whether this belongs to this receiver or not. Once it identifies that this frame belongs to the receiver, then it will open the trailer and verify the errors. If this doesn't belong to this particular receiver, then simply the data link layer will simply reject this particular frame, will not be processed. Simply it is being kept in the dustbin. Once it belongs to this particular receiver, then it is going to verify for errors with the help of the trailer field. Then once it identifies that there are no errors, then the received information, that is whatever is there in the payload field, will be handed over to the network layer of the receiver. This is what the data link layer does. So after that, maybe this data link layer of receiver is going to send an acknowledgement or a feedback to the sender about what it received.